Hello, welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health here on YouTube. I'm your host, Todd Rennebaum. This week I'm speaking with the lovely Megan Johnston, and we're talking about abortion. She has gone and had an abortion a few years back, and we discuss, the mental health issues that can come up not having an abortion or not having the choice to have an abortion, and the mental health effects of having an abortion, and aftercare and all that kind of stuff. She is also she's starting her own business, and it is called, I can't remember what kind of business it is. There's a fancy name for it, but really what it is she's offering services that are very, very helpful to society, including therapy and things like that, especially for the LGBTQ and neurodivergent people. And her business is called Their Collective, Their Collective, not IER. I always spell that word wrong. Anyway, without further ado, Megan. Do you mind maybe talking a little bit about, I guess, your experience with abortion?
Yeah, I certainly can do that. Prior to that, I want to talk about my experience with pregnancy. Um, and that my first pregnancy, I got diagnosed with hyperemesis gravidarum, which means I felt like I had a level 10 hangover every day for 40 weeks. And I often was puking without even noticing. I was vomiting, it's quite miserable. And of course, that impacts your ability to work and function in relationships or function at all, really, and definitely impacts your mental health. So, first, of course, I experienced depression. And then later on in my pregnancy, towards the end, I also experienced perinatal anxiety and panic attacks, um, which was terrifying. Especially as someone who is in recovery from substances, and I didn't feel like comfortable taking a prescription for benzodiazepines and taking it home with me. So often I was like going to the walk-in doctor, every other day. And then I had a just random walk-in doctor that just sat down and talked about the whole thing with me and made a referral to psychiatry. So I got in with the mental health psychiatrist. And then he also, sat down and thought about things for a second, was like, we often prescribe um, allergy medications for kids with anxiety because it suppresses your nervous system. And so it works really well for kids. How about you try that? And that actually worked so well. So I was just at home taking my antihistamines for anxiety. And I now know that's related to my autism and ADHD diagnosis, like all of those things. So
And PMDD, because it helps with inflation. And
yes, absolutely. And so thank goodness for that random walk-in doctor, because no psychiatrist has ever said, hey, take an antihistamine for your anxiety, right? But it works still for me. Like when I feel off and I'm not sure, I'd take them every day now. I'm not, but like, I could before take a double dose if I needed, and I can notice a difference.
is there
So,
any long-term um, damage that antihistamines can give you? I mean, I
well,
guess any medication can, maybe.
uh, when the if I don't take them, I'm puking phlegm every day. So,
Still.
yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
Right. So it's a quality of life thing, not a. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Like I am just entering my like second year of recovery from burnout, autism burnout. So yeah, it's still a thing. And like I still like notice when I was like getting really stressed at the school, I noticed it like build back up right away. It was like one of the first things, oddly. So yeah, it is what it is. When I was then a single mom and my kid was a year old, and I started dating someone new, Um, and I was tracking my period at that time, but we like did get pregnant. Um, the month, I got my birth control prescription, was waiting to start it. We had sex like outside of my fertile zone, but I got pregnant anyways. Um, and so just through discussion with that relationship, not knowing someone for very long, um, being a single mom and my previous experience with pregnancy, um, made me choose abortion. And the thing was that I found interesting for me at that time is I have considered myself staunchly pro choice since I was 15 years old. And even though I had a lot of fundamentalist Christian beliefs at that time, when I had a friend who got pregnant at 15, it was like, yeah, of course, obviously they're going to access abortion. And just that was it for me. There was no like questions ever. But suddenly I found myself like 30 years old, a full time employed professional, and a mom. And it suddenly wasn't an easy choice for me. That I maybe thought it would have been a lot easier of a decision for me to make. Um, and when I think back to that time about the things that I was like Googling to try and make myself like feel supported or find someone that like related to me was like, how many parents have abortion? I remember Googling that like over and over again. And actually, it's like the majority of people who access abortion care are already parents. So this is like, I think we have this myth of people who are accessing abortion healthcare, and they're like, that's not even true, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so now that I know that, and then I thought back to, okay, why do I feel bad about it just because I have the economic means possibly to support another child? Why is that making me feel like I need to put myself through 40 months of misery? And then like deconstructing those beliefs. And so when I came back to it, I really realized that why that was a difficult decision for me was like shame related to having fundamentalist Christian beliefs, and the general, uh, shame, guilt, and myths related to abortion that certain people in our society spend a lot of time, effort, and money pushing that narrative to the public. And so, to put this in perspective, I was actually like gobsmacked when I learned this. But Abortion Rights Coalition keeps really close eyes on what's going on in the reproductive rights arena in Canada, and they have a list of all of the like anti-choice, anti-abortion organizations, nonprofits, counseling centers, etc., and the pro-choice ones. And there's like 330 some anti-abortion ones and 30 some pro-choice ones. So that's the magnitude of this issue in Canada.
Wow.
Like it's a
I
real
had
issue.
no idea.
It's a real issue. Like there's still this year 2024 in Canada, there's been one municipality and one city that have been sued by anti-abortion organizations because they declined to put up their advertisement due to misleading information, and they won. They were able to sue a municipality for not putting up advertising that referred to a fetus. I think they called it a she. The fetus in the mom's belly, and they called it a she.
I mean, my wife is from the town of Windthorst in southern Saskatchewan, and as you're pulling into Windthorst, there's a billboard there saying, I ignore it. I can't even remember what it says, but something about abortion
It's
is
the
murder,
yeah,
or
it's the
it's something
cat,
like
and
that.
that's the Catholic Church one. So I think it has like nice pictures on it. Nice pictures on it too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We're in Canada and we have abortion and well, whatever, have as many billboards as you want. But then knowing the stats of like 300 versus 30,
And that we think that you know we have the legal right to access abortion in Canada, but that the right to access doesn't equal the ability to access. And because the right to access is Canadian, it's a federal thing, and healthcare is a provincial thing, that, as we see with other healthcare procedures, even, but specifically abortion, is that's how and where it's limited is the access to abortion.
So it depends from province to province, basically.
It depends province to province. Not every province in Canada currently has access to abortion.
Hmm. Uh, yeah, something else I didn't know. So it's not like you don't go to the hospital for it. You have to go to a specific, like an abortion clinic.
It's different in every province depending on what the regulations are. Most provinces, it is at a women's health clinic in a hospital. Some provinces have rules again to limit access to abortion, that it can only be in a hospital, but it can easily be provided in a community clinic. There's even, I love this story, but there's even a Danish doctor who was performing abortions in um, co- countries where it was illegal on a boat in the middle of the
Oh,
international ocean. And so this procedure, like, it's safer than taking Tylenol. It's, it's not a huge surgery. It's a 15-minute procedure, and they give you pain medication. That's the only reason really you need to be in a healthcare setting at all. And that, we have dental surgery that's more dangerous happening in offices all over communities. So just a lot of like myths, and it's yeah, just
politics.
scare tactics. Politics, yes, the pro-life movement does a really good job at making sure their members are positioned in areas of politics. This includes, I mean, the same as queer and trans rights. It's the same groups of people, but this includes, yeah, school districts, town councils, like MPs, of course, and MLAs. Like, they really put a lot of effort into making sure that they have people who are positioned in all levels of government that are working on their agenda all the time. Like, yeah.
I didn't realize it was such an organized thing. The anti, no, the pro life. I mean, interesting.
Yeah.
I've talked to a few women who have had abortions and then they went on to have, um, basically the next 10 years of their life was kind of crappy. And so, like, it was a trauma, basically, is what they had. And they either went on with addictions or eating disorders or whatever. Um, the one is also neurodivergent, which I know that's just, you're susceptible anyway to that kind of stuff. But was there any kind of aftercare, or is there any kind of like counseling or anything like that? Or,
Yeah.
well, actually, how long ago was that you had this, your abortion?
Right. I accessed abortion care about 4 years ago.
4 years ago. Okay, so not that long ago. Um, yeah, was there any aftercare, or is there now, or is that something that's
Right. I think historically, because of the stigma around abortion, even within healthcare, the providers, I mean, I still hear horror stories about this kind of stuff happening in Saskatoon, like within the last few years. And so, yeah, it could have been a traumatizing experience. Um, Especially if, like, the thing to me is, of course, I have research and statistics about people who were wanting to access abortion care, and received it, and wanting to access abortion care and were denied. And that study shows inexplicably that wanting to access abortion care and being denied, like, increases your issues, mental health issues, financial, socioeconomic. However, of course, I don't have research about people who maybe didn't want to access abortion and didn't have support, so made those decisions. Like some of those things, of course, would impact your processing of that experience, as well as the stigma, guilt, and shame attached to that. Um, and so I guess I wonder, especially someone who is neurodivergent, is like, what would their experience have been with pregnancy, with postpartum, and with parenting? Because as we know, that's also very difficult.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So you're kind of saying either way it could be a traumatic experience.
I think unfortunately there isn't support because even though it's been a medical procedure, there still has just been this stigma and shame, and it's just been shoved in this back corner, and no, people don't get the support they need to process it. And that if that does exist, unfortunately it's probably through an anti-choice organization, which likely would just have increased the amount of guilt and shame that they were experiencing, and so probably wasn't very beneficial anyways. um
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
However, there are a couple groups that do pro-choice
Do do.
counseling. They do. They do. Pro-choice counseling. There's one that's called Pro-Voice, and that's a free organization, and it has some time limits to it, I think. And then I recently started working with a person in Ontario who has started a therapy marketplace called Post Abortion Therapy. And so their mission is to remove the stigma from post abortion care. So they are offering a place to find therapy providers who are confirmed to be pro choice, feminist, et cetera, and offer guilt free support for those who are looking for professional therapy. They work with licensed mental health providers to ensure insurance is accepted, and are trying to get as many grants to offer sliding scale therapy and discounts whenever possible. So I am going to be providing some services there, which is really exciting.
Ah.
Um, yeah, and it's just that not, everyone will need therapy after abortion. For some
Mm-hmm.
people, it's an easy choice, but for some people, it's not, and it wasn't for me. And so, yeah, I needed to take a look at why that was. Um, yeah, so I'm really
Okay.
excited about that too. I've kind of gotten going on the side here.
Yeah, the one person I know that had it done when she was just kind of fresh out of high school. She would love to talk about it and be open about it because that's, part of healing is being, normalizing it and talking about it. But her parents won't let her because, well, that's a long story, but the parents know the parents of the boy, and they've never told those parents. So it's like, man, I feel so bad for her because she wants to heal, and other people are kind of putting the shame up on her.
Yeah, it was actually
Yeah.
even crazy to me that like I never had a problem even saying abortion until after I had one, that I hated hearing the word, and just realizing that like it's literally just stigma and shame attached to that word that just like make it difficult to hear, and that when we can remove that, that it's not hard to say.
Right. Yeah. And you were doing so when I first reached out to you, this was probably a couple of years ago. You were kind of doing this campaign on, you were putting up billboards. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Yeah, after I accessed abortion care, I just started noticing those billboards more and more again. Like I remember noticing them when I was a kid. Um,
Like the anti one or the pro-choice ones or whatever.
yeah, the
Yeah.
anti-abortion billboards. And I think I just, of course, you start noticing them more. And then when I was looking for them, I would notice them more. And I just, one day, me and my friend went on a drive. We were camping and we saw excessive amount in like 4 hours of driving. It was like 11 anti-abortion billboards or something we saw. I don't even know,
Huh.
but So on the drive home from that, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put up a pro-abortion billboard, a pro-choice billboard. And my friend looked at me and he was like, if anyone can do it, like it's gonna be you that does it. So I was like, okay. I made this goal for myself that I wanted to put up I wanted to raise $5,000 and put up two billboards, but we ended up raising like over the couple years around $50,000 of just literally people donating cash money to us to help us put up abortion is healthcare billboards, mostly in Saskatchewan, and we put up one in Alberta. Um,
So how many signs was that?
we ended up doing about five billboards. They're actually very expensive.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
Ah, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, yeah, that's that's one of those things that as a man I would never think about. And I mean, abortions, not the cost of billboards. and, and so yeah, it's yeah. When you started that campaign, that's when I was like, wait a minute, holy shit, yeah. I do see those other signs a lot. I've never seen. It's not.
We
I guess pro-abortion sounds like
there's
bad,
okay,
but it's
we made a Google map. I wonder if I still have access to it, even though the website's gone. But we made a Google map with all of the anti-abortion billboards that we could find, or like people sent us, or we like they group of these people scrolled on Google Maps Street View and found them. Like we're very
wow,
dedicated volunteers to this map, and I think we ended up pinning around 70 in Saskatchewan.
wow, and five saying or four, I guess. One was in Alberta
Yeah, well,
saying,
and those ones are gone now. So the major issue is that they would buy like $1,000 sign and put it up on private property for forever, amen. And for me to
yes.
rent a billboard sign for a year is $6,000 to $12,000, depending on where it is. So that's like, and no one. We had a couple people like say maybe they would put it on their property. One person in a city wanted to, and I didn't feel comfortable with that because like we did have one that got spray painted and it was on the Havana Homes property construction site and someone spray painted it, so then I didn't want a big one on someone's like garage or something. Like I'm not trying to bring
Mm-hmm.
any issues to people's houses just to support my cause. So it did make it more difficult because just in general, uh we're just way more tolerant of people being intolerant than vice versa. And we're scared of those people that would happily put up signs and what they would do if we put up a sign. Like when CTV, I don't know if it was CTV or CBC, shared one of my interviews on Facebook, there's actually people making death threats to me on there. So
They're pro life though, but they want you to die.
yeah. And then I remember one radio interview, an old lady said she'd get out of her car with an axe and cut it down. And I was like, kudos to you, really.
Good
Good
luck.
exercise. I don't know. It's like a metal sign, but
Yeah, well, that's a really good axe.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in general, and the emails, some of the emails actually significantly less than I maybe thought I was gonna receive, so which is nice. And we did a really good job at keeping our social media we just had no uh leeway at all for any comments. We just blocked everyone immediately. So it stayed pretty good.
What are some of the myths? Some of the major myths. I know you kind of touched on them a little bit, but on about abortion.
And mental health.
Sure.
Sure. Okay. Earlier I mentioned Earlier, I mentioned a study, and that study was called the Turnaway Study. And it was the very first study that was done about the differences in people who wanted to access abortion care and either were able to get it or weren't, maybe because of timing or something like that. So they were turned away. And so this was done by the Advancing New Standards in Reproductive Health group in the US, this study. And it was a longitudinal study. The original one was 5 years, then 10 years. And it's continuing actually to this day. And so they found the major aim of the study was to describe the mental health, physical health, and socioeconomic consequences of receiving an abortion compared to carrying an unwanted pregnancy to term. And the main finding of the study showed that abortion does not harm the health and well being of pregnant people who want an abortion, but in fact, being denied an abortion results in worse health, worse financial health, and family outcomes. So it said women who were denied an abortion experienced higher levels of anxiety, depression, and lower life satisfaction. The negative mental health impacts persisted for years, indicating that being denied an abortion can have long lasting effects on a woman or a person's psychological well being. The study highlighted that financial stress, relationship issues, and parenting challenges were exacerbated by those who were turned away, contributing to poorer mental health. And people who successfully obtained an abortion reported better overall mental health and life satisfaction, reinforcing the idea that accessing abortion is linked to better mental health outcomes overall. So yeah, currently they're doing a study on the intersectionality between being queer and gender nonconforming and accessing abortion, because some studies have shown, or studies show that 2S LGBTQIA plus individuals access abortion care at higher rates than our cishet neighbors, and why that is, mostly probably related to challenges achieving sexual and reproductive health autonomy and well-being, as in like even accessing healthcare to begin with, accessing safe healthcare, accessing education about reproductive health, accessing birth control options, etc.
And probably even trust issues with some doctors and things too, because of the the queer part, or I've talked to trans people that like they have a love-hate relationship with the
Medical
healthcare system.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times the standard argument that you hear is that there are other options from abortion, like adoption or parenting. And that my issue to that is that abortion is not just like a family planning solution, as in you don't want to have more children, but it actually stops pregnancy itself, and that some people don't want to be pregnant, even not have a child, right? And that people access abortion care for other reasons while trying to create a family. While people are on their family planning journey and trying to conceive journey, sometimes stuff happens, miscarriages happen, and people need to access abortion care so that they're happy and healthy and can try again to grow their family.
Right. What do you think of people that? Okay, this I know. Okay, this can be divisive. Divisive. There's a lot of nuance in this. People that they see that there's going to be something wrong with the child through a. Now I'm brain farting. One of them things where you can see the baby.
The ultrasound.
Thank you. and the doctor's like, oh, their baby's going to come out like this, and it's going to be challenging, and it may not, whatever. What I don't even know what I'm talking about, but you know what I mean. And so the people decide to terminate the pregnancy. Other people decide to go ahead, and then this kid is born, and it's like never leaves hospital for like 3 years, and then eventually passes away anyway.
Or vice versa, to be honest. I had a nursing counterpart who was told that their baby most likely would have Down syndrome, and they decided that's okay. It's our baby anyways, which is a great decision for some families to make. And that child didn't have Down syndrome. And so I think that as long as people are making informed decisions, and that as someone who's worked in healthcare and received healthcare, I don't think that that happens often enough, especially when it comes to women's health and especially when it comes to reproductive health.
It's yeah, like you said, if it's an educated, well-informed decision, then it's up to the parents or up to
Yeah.
the mother, really. Yeah, I would hate to not have to, to have zero options is that's scary.
Mhm.
Even if there was no option to abort, that to me is scarier than having the option to abort but then deciding to keep it anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just having that option is settles your mind a little bit, I guess. Yeah, well, actually, they're even finding that with MAID, medical assistance in dying, for mental health, which the government has pulled away. But people that have applied and were approved, actually, their life improved because there were options.
Hmm.
I mean, it's so nuanced. It's so everybody's different. It's all very complicated, and yeah. So I could see how that would be for people that are pregnant and not sure if they want to keep it or not. Just having that validation, that acceptance, and options,
Yeah.
and even though they may go with the option that the doctor wanted in the first place, or society wants, or whoever the church wants them to have in the first place, but just having options is just
Well, it's like
relieving.
I am I can be staunchly pro-abortion, and I'm also, pro living wages, pro supporting single parents, pro
Yeah.
daycare, pro all these things. So it's like, yes, I think everyone should have access to abortion care if and when they need it. And I also think that if people choose to carry a pregnancy to term and be a parent, we should also support them in that. I'm,
Actually be pro-life, not
yeah,
pro-birth.
right.
Do you
We could
find
definitely have that argument, and to me, I remember I made this sign one time that was just like, abortion is healthcare. It's, mental health care. It's harm reduction. It's helping victims of violence. It's family planning. It's sacred in some societies. It's a lot of things for
it's
humanity.
environmentally friendly? Even right,
Yes,
the
I
footprint of humanity.
I also have a very autistic engineer friend who makes that argument to me all the time that if people actually cared about the environment, they would just stop having children.
Well, I mean, it is something to consider when you are starting a family.
Yeah.
It's like, are we doing this just because, or yeah, yeah, it is interesting, but yeah. So there you go. Do you find that, well, maybe in the States, I don't know. Oh God, I hate getting political, but um, do you find that people that are pro-choice are kind of hypocritical once the child is born, and then they don't want to give away social services, and they, you know what I mean?
I think it's hypocritical, but mostly I just believe that it's ignorant. And that when people have access to education and personal experience, they often change their, life views, that we need both of those things to have a significant change, or ability to change, or
Willingness.
interest, willingness, yes, to change. And I am just I think that if people understood it, then they wouldn't have those beliefs. I do believe that most people are good. So
Right, right.
in Canada, the latest is 24 weeks that you can access abortion
Oh
care.
God, now we got to do math. How many weeks is 9 months?
For a pregnancy is 40 weeks.
40 weeks, and you say
It's actually
24
10
weeks.
months.
What?
Yeah.
Women are pregnant for 10 months?
Yeah. But
Why
the
do I always hear 9 months?
well, because you're pregnant for 40 weeks, but it's like the first month is, you're like not actually pregnant until like the third week or something, but they count it.
Oh, you just blew my mind. I never heard that before.
Yeah, it's 40 weeks of pregnancy.
So the time that the deed happens, it's actually 10 months, not 9 months.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Google
Can I see
it.
some ID? Show me some certification here. Oh, speaking of which, you are actually maybe talk about like how
Yeah.
educated. Like you are a psych nurse
Yeah. I'm a
and other
registered
stuff.
psychiatric nurse. And my education background is I got a degree, a bachelor's of science in psychiatric nursing from Brandon University, and I convocated in 2014. And so I've done, as lots of neurodivergent people do, many different things in the last 10 years within that industry. And then I experienced severe autistic burnout and I took some time off and then I switched to education.
When were
And
you diagnosed with autism?
I was, did you say when?
Yeah.
Uh, me, yes.
Good. Okay.
Yes, I got officially diagnosed with autism in March of last year.
Ah, fresh.
Yeah, yeah, my ADHD diagnosis was a year before that.
Oh, you got both.
Yeah.
Oh man, I want both.
I started no, you don't. I
No, I
started
don't.
medication for ADHD, which like just put I had 2 amazing months of my life and then it pushed I feel like it assisted in my creation of my severe autistic burnout because even though the car was falling apart, I kept putting gas in it every day and driving.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
And it like really got to the point that I was like lying on the floor crying, and I would like describe myself as a fried potato to people.
That sounds delicious.
I laid in bed in the dark for like 3 months.
That doesn't sound delicious.
No, I didn't eat
Uh,
anything. I lost a significant a lot of weight. It was like a really interesting experience that I hope to never experience again.
and you're a single mother.
Yeah.
And so what happens to your child while you're going through this? They're making you soup?
No, they go to daycare and school.
Right, right. I know, but I mean that must be tough for yeah, having a mother that's basically in bed for months
Well,
and
like not when
I'm
he's
not saying you're a
there.
bad parent. I'm just saying that
Like I
because
would,
I've
I
done that,
mean,
right? Like
like I would get up, take my kid to daycare, go home, sleep all day, get
that's
up, and go get my kid.
I'm not saying you were neglecting your child. I'm just saying like that. Because I've done that before. Like I've gone through depressive episodes for long
Yeah,
stints of time, and then it's like there's a lot of guilt and shame behind that. So then that on top of your burnout and your everything else, so now you're never filling your cup because you're just filling it with the guilt and shame. And I should be doing this and that, and then yeah, yeah. No, I wasn't. No,
Um,
I feel
no, mostly he's not old enough to be making anything in the kitchen. So
okay.
I was like, no, I hope he's not. I did teach him how to make oatmeal in the microwave, and he uses oven mitts to take it out, and it's pretty cute.
Well, how old is he?
He's 5 right away. Um, we watched a lot of
It's hard.
TV and ate a lot of takeout, and my mom and my stepdad were really supportive.
Are they
Like
local?
making me freezer meals and babysitting whenever I asked. So I'm like really grateful, which is why I live in the middle of nowhere in rural Saskatchewan. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, yeah. I mean, the whole topic of the show was going to be about abortion and all that stuff, but since we're going with the neurodiverse stuff, and you mentioned this earlier, it can be almost traumatizing, or it's very difficult for neurodivergent women to have kids, to try and be a parent. Single people have a hard enough time being on the spectrum and ADHD and PMDD and all this stuff. So, like, to be a single mother, yeah, that must be incredibly difficult.
Well, this is why I quit my job to try and work from home because it was like not working. And like as soon as I had 2 months off in the summer because I went to work at a school, so that was amazing. And for the first time, guilt free because I wasn't also on medical leave, right? And
Mm.
so that was
Oh,
like
God,
really
I know that
nice.
feeling.
I think my soul needed that. And then I just, yeah, had this idea and it seems like it's really possible. And so I was like, hey, I needed to do something that I could work from home and be really flexible in my hours and my days. Like there's just because of, yeah, PMDD, there's a good 2 or 3 days where I have the flu from my menstrual cycle and I sleep all day. So, like, how do you work a real job when that happens? Like,
For those of you listening who don't know what PMDD is, it's premenstrual DD,
dysphoric disorder.
dysphoric disorder, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and which is a whole other thing. There's other episodes about that. Go check out the the episodes, but it's especially hard for neurodivergent women. I actually I wonder, are there people that aren't neurodiverse that have been diagnosed with PMDD? Probably not. They must go hand in hand.
Like maybe diagnosed, but like, do they probably have it anyways? Yes, maybe they're just not diagnosed with it. That would be my guess.
Right? Yeah.
Like
Man, we are.
also the, circle of people who identify as LGBTQ and people who are neurodivergent. I think that's mostly also a circle, not a Venn diagram. So,
Wait, you calling me gay?
whatever floats your boat. I don't know. If you're not a little gay, I don't believe you, honestly. I don't know.
I do love pink, the color pink, but
Perfect.
mostly because it annoys men. It's like the sorry, we are all over the place. We're talking about so many different topics right now, but what's that called? The masculinity, the toxic masculinity. I just like to
Um, I think even if you didn't identify as queer in any way, being neurodivergent makes you more understanding of these things, more open-minded to these things, and probably way more likely to be an ally or to hate
yeah, that
us
sounds about right.
one way or the other. And my process about this is that just because we strongly believe something doesn't always mean that thing is true. And so, I believe that autistic and neurodivergent people are on both sides of the system in positions where we have unflexible views like politics.
Right. Yeah, you get that, like, that strong
A
oh,
special
special
interest.
interest. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like I swear my little fundamentalist Christian grandma, like now that I understand this all through a different lens, I'm like, oh, she was autistic. And the only way she could believe the Bible is to believe it as 100% a literal true story, or else it doesn't make sense. Like, and so that just makes more, and that became rigid thinking as it does with us, right? Um, and that like makes way more sense to me now as an adult of like why she had like zero inability to be flexible at all with her thinking in anything related to Christianity at all.
Wow. Wow, I never thought of that. I like that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like
So
we'd
we have to
have
actually.
conversations of me being like preteen, being like, what about dinosaurs? What about carbon dating? And my poor grandma probably, I just think of it now, but her probably just like internally combusting, being like, what's wrong with this child? Like,
My poor
uh,
granddaughter's going to hell.
another time she told me that God gave AIDS to gay people to punish them. And in my mind, I was like,
Is that in the Bible?
yes. And in my little mind, I was like, okay, obviously she just doesn't know anything about HIV and AIDS. I'm pretty sure that's not true. I got out the thesaurus because they had a collection of or encyclopedias as
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I hand wrote like word for word the entire section about HIV and AIDS, and then I gave it to her.
So you consider yourself, or you identify as queer.
Mhm.
When did you start identifying as queer?
Yeah. Not until after my autism diagnosis. And
Oh, interesting.
yeah. And um no, like I have always dated people from both genders or in
Oh,
active addiction, use substances to make my friends make out with me at the bar. Um, you know how it is.
you're a predator.
And
What? You would get your friends, you
no, I
would
mean
drug your
like
friends to
we're
make out with them.
that's not the vibe at all. I mean,
Oh,
like,
okay.
we're gonna go get drunk and do drugs, and then when people are on ecstasy, they love making out. So they would make out, and I was all about it. So I loved
Oh,
doing ecstasy with my friends.
you weren't roofying them. You were just
No,
partying with
me
them.
immediately, I was like, how did this happen?
Oh, I'm very good at twisting words.
Okay. Um,
Okay.
and I don't know. I think then for me, it was like, well, if I ever end up in a relationship, or then I came out as bisexual, or I would say things like, I know that it's not a choice because if it was, I would be gay, which apparently is a very gay thing to say. Like, apparently, straight people don't wish they were gay, is what I mean, you know?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
I was like
in
over
some
here
ways.
praying, like, please make me attracted to women. Okay. So then, yeah, so it was like slowly, I kind of, as we do. Um, and then when I learned that, I seen some statistic that it's like 3% of women with an autism diagnosis self-identify as cis het. So, what?
3?
Yeah, it was a crazy number. Like you could look it up, but it was a
Wow.
crazy number. And so I remember
Even
when
if it was 10 or 15, that's still a
I
lot.
remember when I seen that, I was like, well, fuck, I'm gay. Like there you go. The answer is right there. Science says it. I'm gay.
So,
Um,
so if you're a woman and you're gay, you've also just that's the diagnosis you need to be neurodivergent as well.
maybe, yeah. But
Nah, I'm kidding.
and so yeah, then I came
Hmm.
across this term by Nick Walker called neuroqueer. And it is the understanding that there, my autism and my queerness are the same. They come from the same place. They exist together, like I wouldn't have one without the other and vice versa. And that to me, I think that they're just one thing. And so I identify as neuroqueer. So yeah, that was my journey for me. And then even like coming out to my dad's family, officially was like,
This is the grandma.
yeah,
Is your dad's
she's
side?
no
Okay.
longer with us, so she doesn't have to panic about it. But I just decided I had to get a Facebook account for the first time in 7 years. I haven't had it, but I
Hmm.
had to get it to run a new business, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I added all of my dad's family, my fundamentalist Christian family, and then just started posting about my very, very queer business. um,
This is like super recent then.
yeah. And so as of right now, I texted my dad and said I was starting a counseling business and he left me on red. So I'm assuming the news got back, and once he's processed that, maybe I'll hear from him in a few months, which is good behavior for my dad.
Oh, okay. Wow. This is a whole other episode now.
Yeah. That's nerd. No, you know what? This like growing up in a neurodivergent family is difficult as a parent. Like now I see this in a whole other way of how he was and why is that he was like extremely burnt out and
Mm.
dealing with two neurodivergent kids. Like I was not easy, not that that forgives abusive behavior or violent behavior or anything like that, but I certainly like understand how that came to be. And when I was younger I could just like never understand how that could happen, and now that I've experienced burnout, like I do understand how that
So you
could
don't take it
happen.
personal. So you don't condone it, but you don't take it personal either.
Yeah.
Be sure to subscribe and to like this video. You can listen on Apple Podcast and Spotify. This is Todd Rennebaum saying, make your beds and take your meds. Keep watching for more interviews with incredible people telling their stories of resilience and adversity with mental health and mental illness.